What's going on, guys? Philip at Trade Genius. All right, we got another Bitcoin update. Wanted to talk about the Goldman Sachs announcement. They're getting bullish on Bitcoin, so we're going to talk about that announcement and kind of how that interacts with price action. So we'll take a look at that. We'll take a look at our daily chart, see what Bitcoin is doing. We'll take a look at the Fib Multiplier chart. We'll look at market internals, take a look at crypto fear and greed, discuss what's going on with the Tether cap, look at the CME Gap chart, and we'll take a look at the yuan comparison and see if that correlation is still behaving. Guys, we have been doing pretty well with the moneymaker, even on the alts. Notice this is Matic, BTC, Binance IEO coins been trending down, but you notice the moneymaker buys have been giving nice 5 to 7% opportunities on getting in and getting pops. If you're interested in this software, you can head over to tradelikeagenius.com. We got a special running where you can either go and use our promo code for 40% off the software, and you can click on Moneymaker, or you can check out one of our bundles where you can join us in the room, and we have various packages with either training or room and indicator access. So you can check that out there. All right, guys, let's dive into these charts.
Trade Genius.
All right, guys, so there was a tweet that went out August 11th. Somebody had copied basically their outlook on Bitcoin. They were targeting a price of $13,971. Okay, that was August 11th. And basically, this was the actual article that was posted. So, they have their own technical analysis that they give out to their customers. And so this one, basically going into the price movement, but, targeting, basically, the long and short of it is they're targeting $13,971. That's August 11th. If you notice what happened on August 11th, which is right here, okay, so that was this green bar, we rolled over. And a lot of times what will happen, especially with Goldman Sachs, is the opposite happens when they bring an article out. And they had a stop of 10,700 based on that assessment. And so, we went right through that, back down to basically this pennant that we're kind of shaping up in, and testing that. Actually wicked past that. That took out a lot of stops. We had a stop in that area, also got hit. I'm not too sure that Bitcoin isn't done to the downside here. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But one thing to keep in mind, guys, when some of these larger entities like Goldman have those type of bullish articles, a lot of retail may run to the current price. They see, it's pulling back. Oh, it's going to bounce higher. They have their stops below these lows, and then it all gets run. And I can rest assured Goldman's buying these dips. Okay, so that's kind of how the game is played. Just be aware. A lot of times the opposite will happen off of those types of articles. Now, again, from a daily standpoint, guys, Bitcoin is starting to get into that consolidation phase. We talked about this, where we would see more of a consolidation sideways move as we head toward fourth quarter, getting into October through December. So, expect something like this, and then we start drifting up. From a price standpoint, this is actually a weekly level, which is basically a bullish area on the weekly, and price has been respecting that. We've been getting dips into that. I think on a shorter term scale, I think though we're going to see probably another push down, probe some stops. Right now Bitcoin's been, stop hunting. A lot of that's largely driven by the derivative exchanges. They run those stops, fill their bags, because ultimately they want to go higher, so they trick the smaller fish into thinking it's dipping lower, and then reverse on them. And they want to fill bigger positions, and they use retail for that purpose. So I think expect some gains lower here, and then we should probably see another move toward this upper trend line, but largely consolidating going forward over the next 4 to 8 weeks would be my guess. If we look at the Fib Multiplier chart, this is kind of like our big levels, right? So anything around the blue line, which is the Fib 1.6, basically looking at that level, and again, give or take several $100s, but this is a general level area where you would expect price to buoy. And again, I think that it's realistic to think or expect price to kind of hang around that level and then drift higher toward yellow, which is the Fib 2 level. But I think largely this range here holds price up and down. And then once we break Fib 2, then we can expect to see a run toward Fib 3. Okay, but I don't expect that to happen until we get closer toward the end of the year. Looking at the Futures gap chart, again, we still have this open gap at 85.15, and we have a gap still open at 11,795. Again, looking at the daily only because I think those are really your most powerful gaps. If we do get lower than the low of this bar here at 97.65 over the weekend, so come Sunday evening, if we open up below there, I think that's probably going to be a quick gap close. Otherwise, if we're in this range, that's not going to really provide a gap on the daily at all. So you will see that on the 4-hour. But as far as, big gaps, when we talk about these bigger ranges, I'm looking on the daily for this stuff. So I expect for sure 11,795 to get hit. Like I said, once this business to the downside is done, I do expect to bounce up toward those levels. As far as the 85.15, not out of the question at all, but it may take a while to get there. Okay, this consolidation can play out for a while, so we could see that on a downward move where this trend line keeps coming down, and then we finally get one final tag of that level. But again, sometimes these gaps can stay open for a long time, and there are occasions where gaps just get left behind for good and never get filled. But so far, all of the gaps on the daily on the CME have filled. So we'll just keep an open mind about that. I don't think this is going to spend a lot of time in this area if it comes down and gets it. Again, a lot of times these will fill on a big wick like we saw back here, and that's done. And then off to the races back to the upside. So 11,795 and 85.15 are current gap levels to watch. All right, if we look at our internals, guys, just have some support and resistance levels. This is a 30-minute chart. If we're looking at funding's pretty flat, so it's not like we have a lot of fuel. We talk about when funding is, consistently to the upside, it's usually bullish, like that's fuel. These are smarter traders. This is the margin positions on BitMEX. When you do see things flipping short, a lot of times what you'll see is when the funding window, which are these bars here, these colored bars, right at those windows, you'll see a drop off, and you see that here, and you also see it here. You'll see that drop off. So that's if you got, the funding is getting kind of more expensive to the short side, which is the size of these bars indicate that. So that's something to keep an eye on. But again, I got these little icons here on these stops, and I think that bodes for areas to look at for where Bitcoin could probably come down and wick. This is shorter term stuff, guys, but if you placed your bid below this stop here, let's say at 99.45 here on Saturday, would not surprise me to see it come down, take that out, bounce off this level here. These are support resistance levels that are drawn, and then come back up, maybe test the underside of this level, support resistance level at 10,000, but I think there's some downward movement here. Again, big picture, that's not a big negative. It's just part of the consolidation process that I think we've entered into. All right, let's take a look at crypto fear and greed. Again, this thing's been dipping down into pretty low readings. The lowest we had was an 11, which we haven't had one of those in a long time, since back, last time we had something that low was a 9 back on November 25th, 2018, which was about near the lows of the lows on Bitcoin before it started to come out of that bear market. So interestingly there, that's August 14th. If we look at the chart, so August 14th was when that printed, it's coming down. Basically, it prints after this bar prints at 8 p.m. Eastern. The fear and greed comes out at midnight. So during this bar, that printed a low. And then the next day when this bar closed and this bar opened, it printed a 13. And so between here and here, we're basically catching the lows of that reading. So those are extreme readings, and you can expect Bitcoin to kind of take a pause from the down move. So we'll see if this holds. If this rolls over, we can probably expect to see another 11 or 13. A lot of times, though, those levels do end up holding. And if we do make a low, that probably would be it for a while. And I would say that high likelihood, if we eke out another low here, we probably are going to run up toward this upper trend line. All right, let's take a look at the Tether cap. So Tether cap, stopped going up and has gone sideways, and hasn't gone sideways like this for this long since back in January. So what can we expect? Well, I think that feeds into consolidation. What we didn't get on this here was this run up didn't get up to these levels like we've seen before, where Tether's market cap leads higher, and we just haven't seen that move. And I expect that move probably to be the end of, at least for this Tether influx of market cap, to be it. So I think this is this has played out. Now, if Tether makes another move higher, then I think that's going to show up and probably mark the end of this consolidation period for Bitcoin. But for right now, I think, this is delayed, right? This is delayed by a few days, or a few weeks. So this is going to, we'll see some gyration, but I think you're going to see Bitcoin get sideways and quiet, which we've been talking about that going into Q4. And so I think Tether is kind of indicating that that's the way things are shaping up. All right, guys, we're going to take a look at the yuan next. Okay, guys, yuan chart, so that's in orange. Okay, if they're devaluating, it's going up. That's bullish for Bitcoin because this is the USD CNH Forex pair, which indicates, if it devalues, this shoots up because the dollar is growing strong against the yuan. As you can see, right, going back to this last rip that we've ripped up, the yuan devalued right up and Bitcoin went with it. Well, we've basically retraced most of that move. However, the yuan hasn't, it hasn't round tripped from these previous levels. It's backed off some. They have walked back that devaluation some, but hasn't completely round tripped from where it went. If we notice here, the yuan dumped along with Bitcoin here, but notice here it actually bounced and started going up. So we had a bit of a deviation here. And when the yuan tends to deviate and start leading higher, even though Bitcoin's going down, you can notice Bitcoin bounces back up toward it like that. Now we're in the weekend, so the last reading was here, and a lot of times you'll get a move that just kind of decouples like we're seeing here. But keep an eye on it when the yuan does this move here, because you can take that leading up and this big old hammer on the 4-hour and put 2 and 2 together and say, well, we got a chance on going higher. Now, and that would be more of a shorter time frame, because you notice this came up, hit this support resistance level and rolled back over pretty hard. Looked like it was attempting to make a lower low and then respected that level there. But so it's pretty volatile, but you can catch these bounces if you're willing to just look at shorter ranges or smaller ranges on the shorter time frame. So we'll be interesting to see what happens next week. This was starting to point down into the weekend. Let's see if it resumes that or not. We'll check back on this on Monday. All right, guys, last thing I want to look at is the Bitcoin heat map. All right, we share this in the room. This is the Bitcoin heat map. What this is looking at is basically the difference between futures and spot price. And the action between those two will dictate a lot of times whether we're in the bullish mode or bearish mode. Bullish mode is this bluish color. Bearish is this reddish color. And does a pretty good job of showing us where we can expect to see actually real price swings follow through. Okay, and right now we're in that red zone. So basically that means sell all the rips. So when we came up to this 200 period moving average, if you were still long, that would be a good place to cut bait. We've bounced off of that and really starting to roll over here. And again, I would not be surprised if we tag those lows like we talked about, and actually wouldn't be surprised if we take out this low here that we made around 9,500. I do have this drawn here, this percentage, and what that basically is, guys, is when we get away from this WMA, this weighted moving average of 20, and we get down about 10% away from it or plus, that's kind of a prime area just from an expansion of price from the moving average standpoint, where think of it as a rubber band. A lot of times these moves, that's an extremely oversold area. If you get about 10+% away from that weighted moving average, where price will snap back and oftentimes snap back to that moving average where it did here, and then we actually got a little bit higher, and then it tested that 200 period moving average and has since been rejected off of that. So if we were to do that again here, the level I'd be looking at would be around that 9,200 area. Okay, so that's something to keep an eye on. But again, if we were to go and test that level, I would expect another bounce back up, and would not be surprised if that finished off this downside move for a while, and then we head back to that upper trend line here and make a move back up toward that. All right, guys, well, that's it for this video. Hope it helps. If it does, please hit like and subscribe. We appreciate all the views, and I will see you on the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.
Trade Genius.